talking to a person who's dead or absent or dead.
Right, so we're addressing.
The dead.
Can I spell addressing there?
Are you sure?
Yeah. Addressing an inanimate object.
So a non-living thing.
A non-living thing, correct. And it can be a dead person.
Or a thing.
Or a thing. So this is how you spot apostrophe in poetry. It will literally say something like, oh, with an actual apostrophe, the moon. And then it's talking, the speaker's talking to the moon. Okay, so this is like our key right here. Not to be confused with apostrophe for possession. Okay? And then last one, how would you describe rhyme scheme? A pattern of rhymes. I like that. Okay. So this is kind of our starting point. I want to make sure we're all on the same page with this. One thing that I did in my other classes that I didn't do with you guys last week is they did like a poetry scavenger hunt while you guys worked on a rhetorical analysis. So I want to make sure that you have this in your word banks, in your minds before we get to our quiz on Friday.
Are we moving?
No, 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 no.
You know, we're staying here for the holiday.
For the holiday.
Okay.
Now, I'm trying to decide tomorrow. I plan for us, I had to switch around our schedule a little bit because, you know, there's the college career fair tomorrow. So I'm trying to see.
I thought it was Thursday.
Oh, yeah, Thursday.
Oh, that's
So, but remember I said that we were going to do our escape room on Thursday? So I'm trying to adjust my schedule so we can maybe do that tomorrow.
Yay.
But we'll have to wait and see.
Is it going fourth period? Where we're going?
To the college fair? No, you guys will probably end up going like during second.
Yeah, me can still do it.
I know that we can in here, but I'm going to have to set it up, so I'd rather just set it all up on one day for everybody.
Oh,
So
everybody with a library. I was like, what?
yes, this is just to write on. Can I erase this? We're good with this on the board? Okay. Alright, so we're going to talk, or I'm going to show you a brief video biography on Edgar Allan Poe, just so that we all have the same, again, knowledge going into our reading. But what do you already know about Poe? He's a poet. He's cynical. He's sinister. What now? Yes, he's a romantic. He is a dark romantic. So, with dark romanticism, if you think back to like your notes on romanticism, failed love, death.
Please excuse the interruption. Teachers, if you would release the boys and girls track team to go directly to the gym lobby at this time. Boys and girls track team, please report directly to the gym lobby. Thank you.
All of those. Okay, so this is just like a 4-minute clip, a little bit about him. Some of it you're probably like, that's pretty disgusting.
This is the cousin.
Additionally, teachers, if you have 9th grade students with last names beginning with W, please dismiss those students to meet with Mr. Hamilton in the common area. All 9th grade students with last names beginning with W, please dismiss those students in the common area.
Whatever party you got going in the back, we got the business up front.
Students will need their Chromebook
Oh
and
my
a writing
goodness.
account.
No fussing. Alright, here we go.
Edgar Allan Poe is a master of the macabre. He wrote horror, he wrote poetry, criticism, fiction, mystery. He was a master of suspense.
Edgar Allan Poe, called by many the father of the detective story, was born on January 19, 1809, in Boston, Massachusetts.
When Poe was 2 years old, his mother passed away, and his father had already abandoned the family. He was taken in as a foster child by the Allen family.
He was writing poetry from about the time that he was 13. He kept writing all the time. He worked very, very hard at his writing and wrote constantly.
In 1826, Poe enrolled at the University of Virginia. He went into debt, he gambled to try to pay off those debts, and found himself in even greater debt, and ultimately had to withdraw from the university. In 1830, Poe enrolled at West Point.
After West Point, Poe turned to writing full-time and lived in a number of East Coast cities before settling down in Richmond, Virginia.
Edgar Allan Poe secretly married his 13-year-old cousin, and then in 1836 publicly married her in a more open ceremony.
He loved her very, very much. They lived together always until, alas, she died of tuberculosis when she was, I guess, around 20.
Poe's primary occupation as a writer was as a literary critic. He worked at several newspapers and literary magazines, and he had quite a reputation for being a harsh critic. One of his editors called him the Tomahawk Man. During his lifetime, he barely made a living from his writing.
Poe published some of his most famous short stories in his 1840 collection, Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque.
He wrote some of his stories using the first person and talking about the use of opium, so people assumed that he dabbled in drugs. The stories were so creepy, they were ghost stories taken to such a brilliant extreme that people thought he had to be a little strange himself.
Poe invented detective fiction when he wrote The Murders in the Rue Morgue in 1841.
Murders in the Rue Morgue really deserves to be called the first detective story. It started the whole tradition of detective fiction.
The Raven, which was published in 1845, was his huge breakthrough. It became a big bestseller.
Poe's career very much went up and down until he really hit The Raven, and that poem was known by, it seems, everyone in the world. It had an enormous press.
On October 7, 1849, Edgar Allan Poe died at the age of 40 under mysterious circumstances.
Poe's death may be one of the most bizarre things about his life. He left Virginia on his way to New York, disappeared. A week later, he was found on the streets of Baltimore.
We don't have a single piece of information about what he was doing. At the end of that week, he was found in a tavern, ill, drunk, and was taken to a hospital.
It turned out he was wearing clothes that didn't belong to him, and a couple of days later, he died in a delirium. Nobody knows exactly what killed him. Edgar Allan Poe's legacy in American literature is very detectable in all of the mystery dramas and stories we have, and all the kind of horror and vampire work that we see, that there is that trace of the sort of horror and mystery that Poe really was able to harness in his writing.
Poe is an American icon. I think he's more than a writer.
Even today, more than 150 years after he died, everybody loves Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay, so this poem that we're going to look at, Annabelle Lee, this is based off of his wife, Virginia, who was also his cousin that he married when she was very young. She was only 13. How old was he? He was 27. Yeah, so that was, even back then, that was not, that was a little too young, okay? So, the thing about Virginia and about a lot of women in Poe's life is that they had, a lot of them had tuberculosis or TB, okay? And so Virginia had a very hard time with TB. And do you know what TB does to your body? Huh?
Your lungs.
Say it again.
Your lungs.
Yes, your lungs. So it fills your lungs. Basically, you're drowning in your own blood. And it fills your lungs with blood. And have you ever seen the movies where they're like, like that? And they got blood on them? Okay, that's like what TB is. But it can take a very long time for TB to actually kill a person. So this he wrote while Virginia was on her deathbed. So this is kind of his ode to Virginia, okay? All right, I'm gonna read it to you, and then we're gonna do some questions on the back together, okay? And I'm telling you now, so that you can learn from the mistakes that you need to. Everyone flip over, make sure yours is good. I'm telling you now because I want you to learn from the other class's mistakes. I said we were going to go over this together and we're going to make sure we get the meaning of it. You need some too? So you got the front and you got the back. But then you're going to go into Common Lit and you'll see there's 6 multiple choice questions that go along with it. That's going to be your grade for today. Okay? So stay with me, hang with me, and then, are you reading about TV? Yeah. Okay. All right, hang with me for a minute, and then I'm going to set you on your merry way. All right, so here we go. It was many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabelle Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. And I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabelle Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs in heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabelle Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a specular. And that's like a tomb that sits on the almost like on the side of a cliff, and it's just a different type of grave site, basically. Okay. In this kingdom by the sea, the angels not half so happy in heaven went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabelle Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. And the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabelle Lee. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her specular there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. Creepy? Okay. So at the end of the poem, what is he saying? What is he doing? He's sitting by her grave. He's spending the night at her grave. He doesn't want to leave her side. All right, take a second and try to find an example of each of these. That's why I gave you a highlighter. So just highlight your example and label it. Now for our rhyme scheme, just choose one stanza to find the rhyme scheme for. Okay? Yeah, just find, as long as you find at least one example of each of these, you're good. I just want to make sure we can find literary devices within this column. example of assonance you found? That repetition of the vowel sound. What could you have said?
In the second sentence, I refer to the kingdom by the sea, the one that rhymes instead, and by Annabelle Lee.
So C, Annabelle Lee, and we can keep it going with me, because that's still the repetition of a sound, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's one. What's something else you could have said was assonance? Repetition of a vowel sound. Chilling and killing, that's line 26. Chilling and killing, that's also assonance. And then I heard somebody say it's also internal rhyme. Chilling and killing on the same line, it's rhyming. Do you see another internal rhyme? Yeah, beams and dreams, right, yeah. Rise and eyes. There, that is, it keeps going. Rise and eyes, tide, side, and bride, yeah. Okay, so he's using a lot of, that's also assonance, right? Tide, side, bride. So that's both. So he's using a lot of internal rhyme and he's using a lot of assonance. Did you find consonants? Demons down. That counts. Sounding C. That counts too. So for those, English isn't like math. There's not always just one correct answer. So for sounding C and demons down, that's consonants, but it's also an alliteration, right? Okay, any more? Find any more? We could use, what's that line? Line 21, the angel's not half so happy in heaven. Half so happy in heaven. That's good. Half happy heaven. I would say consonants. Although, sometimes people say that the H sound is more of a vowel sound. But for us, we're going to say consonants. Okay. Next thing. All right, is there an apostrophe in this poem? Is there the use of apostrophe? The clouds what now?
When the moon never beams without bringing dreams, could that be it?
Is he addressing the moon?
No, he's just talking.
So then, for the moon never beams without bringing any dreams. Well, I would think the moon beams. It brings some, okay, so yes, personification. But no apostrophe in this poem. Remember, when we look for apostrophe, we'll look for the actual apostrophe. All right, let's look at rhyme scheme in the first one, in the first stanza. Okay, ago. If we're labeling it, ago is our A. C is what? B. No. Okay, Lee. B. Bot. C. And me. Okay, so if we were to keep going down, which some of you did, Angel, you kept going with it, right? Which letter did you have the most of?
I had a lot of these.
Okay, there's a lot of B's. And B's just happen to be words that rhyme with Annabelle Lee. And we'll talk more about that on the back. Alright, flip over. Here we go. Y'all are doing great. Bear with me. We're almost done with this part. How do the opening lines of the poem evoke a fairy tale-like tone for us?
Many years ago,
Okay, many years ago, what else? The kingdom and the maiden. And Edgar Allan Poe, when he writes, he really does love that medieval kind of feeling. And that was one of those romantic elements, dark romantic elements that we took it from. don't have to, no,
Let me
just,
do it.
I just put Kingdom David. Because we got actually a lot of stuff to cover today. Alright, number 2. How do lines 7 and lines 27 through 29 reflect the reality of the relationship between Edgar and his wife? So let's start there. Somebody look at line 7. What does line 7 say to us? Ew, I was a child and she was a child. So how does that reflect reality? Because his wife was actually a child. And he's kind of justifying it, because that's the next question. What might Poe feel the need, or why might Poe feel the need to justify his love for Virginia, right? So, saying I was a child and she was a child, how does that justify him being married to a 13-year-old? Or how's he trying to justify it? Yeah, it's saying that he was a child is kind of saying like, he might have been older, but maybe in his